I'm Maria Vovchok, professional MC, journalist, and ambassador at the Blockchain Association of Ukraine. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really happy to invite to the stage our amazing panelists. So please give it up to Musfique Ahmed, co-founder at SmartCrowd Holdings, the operator of MENA region's first and largest regulated real estate investment platform. Please give him a big hand. Also, please give a big hand to Hervé Larren, advisor at Decentralands Mega City District, advisor at Horizen Labs. Please give him a big hand. And also, last but not least, please give it up to Dereck Hoogenkamp, CEO at Yalla Properties and Technologies with an extensive background in real estate, and now he's tokenizing real estate and dealing with Metaverse and all of the financial systems behind. I really hope that everybody can hear you. By the way, 1, 2, 3. I'm really sorry, but I need another microphone. This one is not working. So, or maybe in this case, if it will be comfortable for our speakers. By the way, have you invited everyone? Okay, wow. Oh, now it's working. So how do you feel comfortable? If I would ask you questions here or from that side? Okay, I believe that from this perspective,
ladies next to me, I always
the ones in this case probably sitting like this, standing like this to the audience, so probably I'll join you here. I believe it will be even better. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, as it was mentioned earlier, by the way, have you invited everyone who is like right down there, sitting and having coffee to enjoy our open stage? Today we're starting open stage, the second day of Meta Week, and we're going to discuss, I believe, really one of the most exciting, interesting topics from this perspective, the real estate and Metaverse. If you could imagine, like, a few years ago, whether could it happen or not. But about this, we'll talk a bit later. I just want also our audience to get to know better our great speakers. So in that case, can you please tell to our audience, what do you believe, so they will remember you by this probably. What is your #1 business skill which helps you to be successful at your work? Who would like to start? Musfique? Oh,
that's a really easy question. Just being happy and do nothing, and everything comes to you by itself.
Do nothing? You know, that sounds interesting, specifically taking into account what are you doing in this case. Okay, do you agree with that or not? Hervé?
Well, to bring it back to the topic, I think that a lot of the things that we're doing is on a digital basis.
Yes.
And what I realize is that it's a lot of the mechanisms that happen in the real world. Okay. So I guess a skill would be to explain people in the real world how can they integrate within Web 3.0 and that the mindset is basically very similar.
Thank you. Musfique?
Yeah, that's a tough question to start off with.
You see, somebody says tough, somebody says easy.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. I guess, you know, 17 years experience as a management consultant, being an equity partner at Ernst & Young, worked globally. I guess my fundamental skill is to solve problems through technology, through innovation. Can you hear me? Does it work? Hello? Hello? Yeah, I think it's fine. So, yeah, consultant, solving problems.
Okay.
So I want to add to that. I think it's really important what you said, like that people need to know how it works and everything. But I think we should not make things too complicated, and it should be all utility cases. Like, for example, the Metaverse is amazing, but I don't need to know about blockchain in the back and technology and all this stuff. But it just needs to work immediately, and people need to see exactly as you said, the utility of Metaverse or of blockchain or of everything, right? But they don't really need to know the technical background and everything. So I agree with your points that I think it's up to the people to adapt. I don't know how the internet works, but I'm using it every day.
Yeah. So let's go back to our topic, because if we would think like a couple of years ago that this would be possible, probably not everybody of us would like imagine this. But over the last years, and this has happened like since Facebook, like much hyper transition to Meta when they announced it. So virtual property prices have gone up like up to 500%. So, and this is this is data according to CNBC. And we are seeing that investors are really eager to invest in real estate, in Metaverse, in virtual land, let's call it like this. So, can you say, is taking into account that you have also like really big background dealing with real estate in the physical world, that it somehow influences that investors right now eager more to invest into real estate in a virtual world more than in a physical world, so it influences the real estate in a physical world?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe always, again, I come back to the same, there has to be utility and there has to be a physical world. So what does it mean? You have the physical world, you have the exact parallel twin, which is the virtual world, and you have the triplet, which is the gamified virtual world. A lot of times, most people talk about the gamified virtual world, right? Where you see the 500% increase you were talking about. But I really like the exact virtual parallel twin, because if you buy a villa, let's say, and then you have a parallel virtual twin, that is an exact copy of your reality, and that gives you a lot of benefits, like for example in facility management, like for example in IoT, like for example in security. So if you change something in the parallel twin, exact parallel twin, it changes in the real world. Or if you change something in the real world, it changes in the exact parallel twin. And then with the triplet, what everybody is talking about, you can do whatever you want. You can build a spaceship in your living room. But this is all different. I'm more interested in the development side and in the utility of the metaverse or of any other technology within the real world. And use it as a utility to make our lives easier and better and more efficient, effective, and seamless.
So in this case, you can see that it's only helping. It does not distract the attention from the real estate. It kind of boosts the attention to the real estate, which in this case can have a physical twin.
Yes.
I mean virtual twin.
Absolutely, because it's not only about how to purchase or how to fractionalize real estate, it's all about utility. Of course, fractionalization of real estate is, for example, nice. You can put some token on it or whatever you can do. But if you have everything digital, ranging from the land to the cables, to the cameras, to the walls, to everything digital, you can do really differences. You can, in facility management or in construction or post-sales, pre-sales, after-sales, you can really use it. And that's the key, because, or even talking about, if you talk about triplet, how you're gonna legalize, how you're gonna have identity, you have identity problems and everything, but physical world is there. So.
Yeah, by the way, we'll definitely talk about the triplet. Hervé, do you agree with what Dereck says or not?
Well, so I got in at the beginning of Decentralands, and right now we're the largest landowners within Decentralands, and within the Metaverse, we're the #1 entertainment zone and the #1 commercial zone within the space. So we see a lot of activations. We have an art district with 80 art galleries. We just did the Australian Open. We have big consultant firms that we help onboard people on the Metaverse, and we have dozens of brands and celebrities that are coming through our door on an everyday basis, or we have partnerships with. And I saw the evolutions of it, obviously, for different milestones, whether it's the NFT sides, and as well as obviously large Web 2.0 company that changed their names and gave us a push. So the price of real estate within our district went up 322 times since the beginning. Right now, the price of a square meters on average in total in Decentraland is $56 a square meter. Just to keep a comparison, some similar or in smaller market caps are about $1 a square meter. So it shows the potential revenue generations that can be happening within the space itself. And I think that differently than other more centralized organizations, these decentralized worlds cannot be bought, or else, you know, the large organizations or even funds would have already purchased the entire thing. So I think that when I first started looking at it, obviously NFTs didn't really exist. Metaverse as a concept had existed for a long time, but you know, very hard to grasp. But what I realized, being early into Bitcoin since 2013, is that, and being Venezuelan, so you know, understanding that some countries had inflations and that you needed a plan B and opt out of the systems, that Bitcoin was disrupting the $10 trillion gold store of value, but the largest store of value in the world was actually real estate. It's $400 trillion, 40 times the size. And if we believe that store of value in the digital world was something, well then real estate was the natural evolutions. And that's why we saw last year $500 million of transactions in terms of real estate. And the way that we actually look at it now, we don't sell any of our real estate, is that on an everyday basis, people are approaching us and they want to do lease deals. Because like the real world,
they want to rent them.
They want to rent it because for them it's more important to have focus on their operational business on the metaverse than rather owning land. The same way that you would have fashion brands, they're not going to go all over the world buying the real estates where they have their stores. They want lease deals, they want a good neighborhood, they want to secure the price now for the next 1, 5, 10 years, and we help them actually doing that. And this has been, I would say, a fast growing category for us. And again, very similar skill set that is understandable for major companies. So one of our role also is to onboard those traditional business in Web 3.0 using the same language that they're used to.
By the way, I actually wanted like address to you because, sorry, as you mentioned earlier, as far as Hervé is advisor at Decentralands, one of the probably very interesting news which happened that Tennis Australia, which is the organizer of Australia Open, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have partnered with Decentralands to host the AO in the Metaverse. So this is probably was one of the very exciting topics which actually brings the attention both, like everybody already know about Australia Open, but right now everybody probably here knows about Decentralands. So they actually created like this virtual environment, which at the same time contains key areas in Melbourne Park, including the Rod Laver Arena and Grand Slam Park. So one of the things that I wanted to ask, as you mentioned, like they will have their Australian Open. Can somebody from Australia rent it out in the virtual space, in the metaverse, or not? How, by the way, how did you, first of all, how this partnership happened? How are you involved in that? Can you please develop on this? And second of all, can anyone from Australia also rent a piece of that land in the virtual Australian Open world?
Yeah, so that's a perfect example. So in terms of the structure itself, Decentraland is a foundation.
Yes.
So they don't own any piece of land. They are the creators. They're sitting on about $1 billion worth of token for the foundation itself. But the land is owned by individuals and different corporations. So actually when the partnership with Australia Open was with us and was on our land because we had the 100+ parcels of land to actually hold the event. So when Australia Open came, it doesn't make sense for them to buy, millions of dollars worth of land, which is not even for sale, and actually do this for a month, the duration of the tournament. So they basically partnered with us and said, this is the idea that we have. What do you guys recommend? So we were projecting some of the matches, the highlights of the match, but actually the interesting things is not to replace television, is to add on the experience. So the two things that became quite newsworthy was the first one, there was a virtual tennis match that was played. If you play against your friends, you win a match point. You get the match, the final ball of the match point as an NFT, so as a picture of the ball saying Australia Open 2022. That gets dropped in your wallet, that's a souvenir, and potentially has a secondary value to it. So a lot of, NFT collectors really like that approach. And the other thing was a store that was selling the gear of the Australian Open. So you can imagine that afterwards, if you do, for example, we had the closing party with Steve Aoki, a famous, Las Vegas-based DJ. You can imagine that if you wanted to attend that after party, you could wear one of the T-shirts of the Australian Open, and that was your ticket to actually get in. So all of a sudden, the NFT had a utility of actually being able to attend an event that was organized by the Australian Open. So that was, I would say, the first Grand Slam tournament that was executed on the Metaverse, so it got quite a lot of press, and we can imagine that other sports categories took notice and realized that we had the land to host their events in the future.
Just quick question additional about that. Does it look really real when you're watching Australia Open in the Metaverse? Is it difficult to, not easy to comprehend, or the audience is already ready for it? What can you tell?
Yeah, I think if we look in hindsight at the first Amazon website in 1994, it would be very weird looking at afterwards. And there's obviously a lot of room for growth and improvements. But I think what is interesting behind it is the tokenomics, is to be able to, own the customers, to airdrop NFTs, to sell virtual goods. And over time, I think that the product experience is going to be, have an exponential growth as well. So this is an evolution. I think from, day one, when a piece of land was a few dollars, to now be $12,000 for a parcel, the minimum price, the floor price within that space. People understand the value, but I think also when you look at the roadmap with virtual reality, who's going to be tested later on this year, etc., all of a sudden, you'll see even more growth coming within the space. And I think that virtual reality is what a lot of people imagine the Metaverse to be. So right now we're still in desktop versions. A lot actually of other Metaverse, whether centralized or still in, almost like on PowerPoint presentation deck and, valued at quite amount, but actually building it is quite complicated, quite difficult, and I think often it's underestimated how tough it is to create that ecosystem.
Thank you. Musfique, coming back to the question about the real estate in virtual world, in the real world, does it feel like it can be threatened? Are there more opportunities for the physical real estate when there are more real estate is right now is taking place in Metaverse, which you can buy or rent?
No, it's an interesting question. Can you all hear me? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So look, I think you have to wind back.
Yes.
The purpose of real estate. If you look at it, real estate is for what? It's for living in, for working in, for meeting other people, to conduct your business,
to have office,
or to invest in, to earn income, to secure your future. So if we can categorize real estate as that purpose, what does Metaverse offer to the real estate industry? And from my perspective, and what we're seeing is real estate has fundamental challenges right now, even though it's the biggest store of value globally, $230 trillion, I think, at last count. But it's really lumpy. It's really difficult to buy and sell. It's very difficult to buy and sell for a number of reasons. One is the underlying, let's say, below the pyramid, the process of buying real estate is really, really complicated. Right? It can take 8-9 months in certain instances. The other thing is, for investors, you often don't get to see what you're buying. Right? So if you're someone living in Barcelona and you want to invest in Dubai, well, unless you get on a flight, get over here and experience it, you're trusting the broker. or you're trusting the developer to be able to really experience it. So what we're seeing, Metaverse is offering two things. Not just Metaverse, but let's say Metaverse, blockchain, NFT, the whole convergence of technology is offering that immersive experience for people to feel and see before they purchase, post-purchase, do more with it, and two, completely simplify the whole transaction process. And that opens up a whole, plethora of opportunities related to investment and living and working. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, Dereck, did you want to add something?
I believe that if you look at, if you use an Unreal Engine 5, for example, it's super realistic. And I see a lot of, for example, Blockchain Valley or other companies doing super realistic metaverses. So even if you have your VR on, it's crazy realistic. So I see a big future there too. But I agree with the principle of real estate is that you use it yourself, you're there, it's the place you live, right? And that's what I didn't like of the movie of Real Player One, right? Is that the guy lived in sorry for the word, such a bad place in reality, and in the metaverse he was like this amazing car driver and everything. But it's about the place you really live in every day. It's not only about the metaverse. So let's turn it around. As you said, it's first the real estate and then the metaverse. So then I believe that the metaverse is just helping the real estate for utility, for seamlessness, for effectiveness, and for fractional ownership, or for anything like this, or for easier transaction or easier help, for example, with land departments or title deeds.
If I may, so I just want to build on a really important point there. Is I think it's the evolution of the virtual world to merge with the physical world, where you'll start seeing digital representation of real assets. So what would be amazing is, if you own a property in the Burj Khalifa, right? And you can have all your investments in the metaverse and actually start maximizing value from that too. So I think that's where it's going to evolve to. Although virtual world itself is very nascent, right? So it's going to take a long time, because there are risks though. I think we're talking about all the positives, but there are risks around.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please continue about the risks, because it's also very important.
Yeah, so I was going to say there is some risks to be kind of thought about related to kind of the market dynamics. So as soon as you start merging virtual assets, virtual properties to real assets, having the integrity of the market, the pricing, the volatility is going to be quite important. So, I think what we're going to see is more regulations to kind of make sure that the consumer protection is looked after, the market protection is looked after, and the technology itself can enable that. But we are far, far from that. But I think what we're seeing is a few companies who are experimenting in this convergence of virtual and real estate.
I see. By the way, one of the things that I wanted as well for you to dwell upon, because there's, for our audience who, for example, is new to this, it's very important to differentiate whenever there is created virtual reality and in metaverse, there is real estate, and it's a bit different thing if, for example, we're offering tokenized real estate in the physical world with the help of NFTs, and you're selling this in a virtual world. And here also there are a lot of legal implications, specifically in different countries. We don't have a lot of time to specify on this, but just really quick example. It's a really different approach here, for example, in UAE and in Switzerland. For example, Switzerland is already prohibited. They don't accept even they don't allow even the proposal which was offered here that the real estate can be offered as NFT. It's only in this case security token offering if we're tokenizing real estate. Maybe you'd like to add about this. If you would like to, Dereck, I know that you wanted to dwell upon this topic a bit.
I think I agree with you completely. I think we need regulation for this. And also, NFT is just a tool for me. It's not I don't see tokenization through NFT. Absolutely not. It's just one tool. I think you have to digitalize the whole property. You have to digitalize everything, and then you can tokenize it. I don't see tokenizations of SPVs on top of real estate. Then you can also buy a share. I mean, then that share can be an NFT or whatever, but that's where I don't see the future. I see the future in exact parallel twins with the metaverse, and you digitalize the real metaverse, and that you have the exact parallel twin as I mentioned.
Yeah.
And not only the NFT or only the token of the share in some special purpose vehicle or something like this. All nice, but this is, for me, not the future.
Yes, thank you. Let's dive back more into Metaverse because, and probably a lot of you know already about the big four players from this perspective. It's Decentralands, it's already Sandbox. There is additional two, which is Crypto Voxels and Somnium. From your perspective, what you have been already observing in the space, who do you believe might be the fifth, if there is a fifth big player or sixth player or anyone, who do you believe can offer something even more interesting from this perspective?
So the way that I see it is often we see it, and I think the bigger question is, who's going to be the one to bet on? What's going to be the one to
win, let's call it like this. Who will be like the winner?
Yeah, to win, and who's going to be the the leader within that category. And the way that I see it is that although Web 2.0 was about a winner takes all, it's a little bit like social media. The number one is valued $1 trillion. The number two is valued 25 million. In this case, the way that I see Metaverse is a bit the way that I see layer ones. And to take a real estate analogy, I see them as cities. For me, it would be like, Ethereum being New York, Solana being LA, Polkadot being Chicago, with all their pros and cons. Ethereum, very expensive gas fees, but at the same time...
So which city?
Which one?
So in that case, which city would be Ethereum?
Yeah, so it would be like, which city is going to...
Denver, no? There was the Ethereum conference. Why not Denver?
But it's not the most expensive, though.
No.
Sorry.
So in that case, is New York better than LA, better than Chicago, etc.? I think it's a different value proposition to all of them. So it's not going to be, in my opinion, a winner takes all. So the other things that I would say is to differentiate really between decentralized metaverse and centralized ones. Yeah. If we're talking about Web 2.0, there's one owners backed by VCs looking for an exit. Are individuals going to build on that metaverse? Because if you get the product for free, that means you're the product. They're monetized your data. Whatever you built on it is owned by the organizations. If the organization collapses, which has happened in the past, your entire world collapses against with it. When it's decentralized platforms, you can build on certain metaverse, and it doesn't matter if they continue or not, because your plot is always going to be there. So I often say that, what the organizations or the foundation does, it doesn't matter. Because if you have your shopping mall within that metaverse, it is built, you can maintain it with your servers. The vast majority of people don't even know which metaverse is actually built on, or the fact that it's even built on Ethereum. They have no clue. And I think the majority of people wouldn't even care about it in the futures. They just want a great product, a product that works, and to make sure that it's going to be there forever. So I do think that there's a philosophy behind each of the different metaverse, behind every cities. Not every brand should have a store on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. It's fine to be on, secondary cities, in, malls in suburbs. That doesn't mean it's a bad business. It just means that there's a positioning to actually being made. The same way that it's fine if a project says, oh, I don't want to build on Ethereum, it's way too expensive, I'd rather build on platform XYZ. But there's nothing bad against it, but they have to think about it from a long-term perspective. And often when you pay a premium, there's a reason for that. Especially if you look at it for the next, 5, 10, 20 years, and you want to, and you believe that Web 3.0 is here to stay.
Thank you, Musfique.
Yeah, so I tend to agree with that. Just a couple of maybe nuance. I think if you look at the acquisition spree of the big tech players, whether it's Meta, Microsoft, they're all buying up, gaming platforms for billions and billions of dollars, right?
It's like quite often the entry point.
Correct, right? So I think that's something to watch out for. Whether it'll be centralized or decentralized, I think there's a point of discussion. But for sure, I think the big tech players will have they may well have that winner-take-all approach that, this is the space to be in, and we're going to invest and essentially take, complete market share. I think that's one trend that we'll see. The second trend that we're likely to see is around niche players. I think you kind of touched on that, Hervé, that there will be meta worlds that are very specific for live events. So you mentioned Australian Open, because I think once you start becoming very specific and focused, you can become best at it, right? So at the moment we have probably relatively generic metaverses. You're going to start seeing niche sporting events. Maybe within sporting events it will be even more niche than that. Music events, and I think there was another conference earlier on we talked about dating. But there will be, metaverses for certain experiences. So I think what we'll start seeing is more niche and the big tech players. Those are the two predictions I see coming up in the future.
Yeah. But what do you believe is the biggest misconceptions the community, I would say the community which is already familiar knows about Metaverse, and somebody who's just learning about it, what is the biggest misconception the community has about real estate in Metaverse?
Misconception about real estate in Metaverse.
Yes.
So I think at the moment, because I speak to...
Let's draw a parallel, how they perceive it, expectations, and the reality.
So I will use my mom probably as a case. So if I asked her, what do you think about real estate in Metaverse? She would just say, well, that's just, the Ready Player One. It's just the game, right? Yeah. I don't think the average person is comprehending, the value that it can bring beyond just entertainment, right? That it can be a store of value, it can increase in value, you can actually conduct your business there. You can do so much more with it. That comprehension is not there for the average people. I think the leading players in this space, the innovators, the disruptors, they for sure are seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add it. Same example with my mom is that she doesn't know how to bank on the internet, but she knows when she has her own avatar to go in her old banking bank and be banking in the metaverse, because she knows how to do it the traditional way. So there you have, again, a good utility case, right? And the same thing is, for example, if you look at the avatar of, for example, in Meta, it doesn't have a body from here down, right? Which is, for me, really strange. I think we should also have what people, when they try it the first time, it should be really realistic. Yeah. I mean, you should be really your own person, or your... I mean, my metaverse was nice because I lost 20 kilos, but it should be realistic, it should be feelable, it should be acceptable, and also it should be usable. So, for example, banking in the metaverse would be fantastic, because most people, it doesn't matter if it's only Generation Z or older generation, they don't know many things because they're used to a certain way, and this you can copy and paste in a metaverse, and it can be as realistic as in the real world for that specific transaction. Mm-hmm. And that's especially also with education, for example. Why go to a classroom, and why not do it with an avatar, and with AI learning, maybe it can even be better.
By the way, this is debatable about education, because still, a lot of kids, on the one hand, they will be excited, but whether they will like the physical contact, this is another thing.
Yeah, that's the same with the real estate, right? The real estate, I believe it always has to be connected to the real world, and the metaverse always has to be connected. The same with the education, right? There has to be a real social life also for the kids, and there has to be, it's again the same with the parallel twin or with everything. I agree with that completely.
But I think it's the point, it's an and, not an or, right? Yeah. It's,
correct.
I think you can add so much to it. If you look at, in developing countries, one of the biggest barrier of, education is physical infrastructure. So you'd have to buy bricks and mortar and build buildings, but actually you can start augmenting with devices, or, you can start really accelerate the whole education because people can access it from their homes, right? So I think it's an and, not an or.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Especially, let's take some countries in Africa. They say, oh, they're unbankable, or they don't have access to education. I mean, if you have one computer or one of the glasses in one place, you have access to all of it. And then the same is with the payment, right? This is what it is about. I mean, it's not only about all problems. No, we can really help the countries which don't have access for a better place. And I think the metaverse and prop tech and everything with real estate will really make it a better place, and also for people who didn't have access before.
Thank you, Hervé.
Yeah, so I would say in terms of, to get back to the initial part, there's still a big misconceptions that digital asset has no value. 10 years ago, people were talking about, Facebook and other, digital platform as, basically having, zero value, completely discounting it. Now they're the darling of the stock market. Everybody raves at them. We see, companies like Airbnb that has a bigger valuations than the biggest hotel chains, and everybody is saying, now it feels almost normal to think that. So when I think about the next narratives, I'm thinking about the next 5 years. Where will the market? Right now, when we say real estate and the metaverse, is at best people are laughing. Then you tell them, the price of a square meter, the growth of it, and for a business, for a traditional retailer, I believe that in the future, people will be saying, how is your metaverse, how is your business going? And then they will say, oh, and by the way, how's your physical business going? And they're like, yeah, physical business is 5% of my revenue, but I need it, for my mother to make my mother happy, so she knows that I have actually a real business. So I think that originally for investors, the way that I see them approaching us on an everyday basis, they want yield.
Yeah.
And if we tell them, hey, you get yield for, that much in the real world, and this is, your tax elements that are going to come in, and this is how you're going to deal with banks, and this is the, percentage that banks are coming, and then all of a sudden you have a yield in the metaverse that is 10 times the amount, plus finance with DeFi at strictly attractive rates, all of a sudden, that speaks a lot.
Yeah.
So, the whole concept about physical and digital kind of go by the window when they actually need to, produce the best yield and the best passive income. So I think that is going to be a big argument. I don't think that people are going to DeFi to, be, nice to the Web 3.0 community. They basically see their current systems where they're making 0% interest in banks and need to find, performing assets that beat inflations. And at this time, Web 3.0 beats inflations. And it's even going to be very risky, very difficult for Web 2.0 type business to deliver the kind of returns that they have had over the last 10 years. So there's obviously a parallel between risk and returns. And when you see the growth of adoptions happening in certain category, I believe that, in the future, these, real estate asset is going to be like, your e-commerce retail platform. And at the end, it's have to be compared, the channels have to be compared to each other. And when I see people comparing or getting ready and locking it, 10-year leases on the metaverse, they're making the bet that this is going to be our revenue. And their way of analyzing is very simple. They go towards Ivy League schools in the US and see where kids are going right now. You don't have anybody wanting to build a Web 2.0 business. They're all going into blockchains. And you're thinking that all these MIT grads are going into that space, therefore maybe it's something to actually look at. And they understand real estate in the metaverse, and they're more attracted to it because they live in a global environment and not in a specific city for the next 30 years.
By the way, talking about forecasts, as you mentioned this earlier, the research firm Strategy Analytics recently found that the global metaverse market will hit nearly $42 billion by 2026.
Only?
I mean, they're approximate like forecasts. What's your forecast from this perspective for like the few years to come, next few years to come?
Well, look, I think it's difficult to forecast a number, but I think we can safely say that it will be exponential growth from where we are now. You know, so my personal view is that, you know, like I said earlier, niche platforms, big tech players, they will drive immense amount of growth. And what you'll see is, again, is that convergence of the real estate market and the virtual real estate market, and you'll start to see that convergence. So I think it could be much bigger than that.
Well, I'm just going to quote one of the big U.S. banks and their report, knowing that, you know, a few years ago they didn't believe into blockchain at all, and now that they've, you know, spent a bit of time researching about the space, they're saying $1 trillion a year by 2030. So for me, if it's not $1 trillion a year by 2030, that means that...
1 trillion, we should remember that.
I think it's really true what he says, because I remember in the physical world I was selling already a few billion per year. So why not in the metaverse? I mean, and it was only one company, right? So easy, metaverse is worldwide.
Yeah, the other thing that I would say also, by 2030, at the rate of inflations that are going on, it's not going to be worth what $1 trillion today is worth. So we have to also factor this within the space.
Okay, I really appreciate, I was really excited by your insights. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you so much. Please give it up once again to our amazing panelists. So once again to Musfique, Ahmed, Hervé, Larren, and Dereck, Hoogenkamp. Thank you so much. I'm Maria Vovchok. I hope you got a lot of insights as well, and please enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.